This sermon series, following the footsteps of Jesus, we're looking at what it means to be a mature follower of Jesus. I take prayer as a baseline in all of that our communication of speaking and listening to God is part of what we do. And we're looking at three other things. 2 weeks ago, we looked at charity and justice. Then last week, we looked at church and community. And today, we're going to look at forgiveness and mellowness. This, I think, captures what it means to be a mature follower of Jesus. Jesus tells three parables that you'll know maybe quite well in Luke chapter 15 about a lost coin, about a lost sheep, and then he talks about two lost sons. There was a man who had two sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property between them. That was in essence the son saying, "I consider you dead, Dad, because you got the inheritance when your parent died." So he's saying to his father, square to his face with his older brother, who should get 2/3 of the inheritance, "You are dead to me. I am moving on." Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he'd spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. Apparently at this time there was one pig farm in Jerusalem, but it was hidden and not known by most people because pigs were considered unclean to Jewish people. They would not eat them, they would not touch them. And so for this young lad to go and work with the pigs is the lowest of the low positions that he has taken. I wonder if the foreign guy who sent him to it did it deliberately, because he knew, you're a Jew and you don't like pigs, they're unclean to you, so I'm going to make you do the most humiliating, demeaning thing that you can do and go and work with them. Strip you naked, shave your hair, steal your property. And he fed the pigs these pods. These pods had no nutritional value. They just tricked the pigs into thinking they were full up. And he thought, I'd love to eat some of those. It'd be like going to Taco Bell on the high street that's now shut down. Did anyone go in there? Or did you look and think, what is it? Dan Potter went in there. Of course you did, Dan. You have probably been to every restaurant in the town. Do you know once Dan was going to his mum's for Sunday roast and he bought 6 chicken nuggets at 12:15 and ate those just to tide him over until lunchtime. Unbelievable. The luxuries that this young man did not have as he starved in this place. When he came to his senses, wonder how long that took. Wonder how long he kidded himself that it was all okay, it's going to turn good, just keep going, make the same dumb decisions, and finally one of these dumb decisions will actually work. It's like the people I know who gamble, and the next one that they do, that they put that on that horse or on that American football match, and that one will be the one that will work and will make me rich. One of the footballers down at the club was doing that and lost loads. I wound him up saying, "Oh, I've put money on that now." "Not that I did." And I said, "I've made millions." "Oh, be quiet, Neil." Because he knew he'd made a dumb decision. It's just fun to begin with. It's just fun going to the far off country to begin with. But then you squander what you've had. I've still got a bit of the inheritance left. I'll eke it out and then it will last longer. No. He came to his senses. How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants." So he got up and went to his father. I can imagine him rehearsing the speech, can't you? "I've got to nail this. I've got to get this exactly right for my father. I'm no longer a son anymore, but I'll take being a hired servant. If he takes me back like that, that is better than eating these empty pods that these pigs are eating and looking after these pigs. Maybe I'll get to look after one of the fatted calves. Maybe tend to that instead." But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him and kissed him. This father is a landowner, which means he would have been wealthy. And wealthy people in Jesus' day the men wore lengthy garments that went all the way down to their ankles. If you're a lady and you've ever been to a wedding and you've got one of those lovely dresses on that you had to buy for this occasion because you only had 7 others in the closet, but your husband wasn't even allowed to buy a new tie, I'm digressing. You've got this lovely dress on, you've got your drink, your slur, your champagne in your hand, and then the heavens open. You have to run into the marquee or the room, don't you? And if you're going to do that, what do you have to do? You have to hitch up your dress a little bit, don't you? So that you can actually, rather than go like that, you can actually run a bit quicker. And you look ridiculous as us men just stride in our suit and well-worn tie. You look... Thank you. This father looks a complete fool as he hitches up his garment and runs down to his son, who is a long way off. He's not close by. He's not waiting till he gets there. He's not thinking, I'll let him think about it just a little bit longer. And when he sees the sternness on my face and realises what he's done wrong, then I might consider forgiving him. Father runs. If we're parents, we need to run to our kids. Sometimes that's tough. Sometimes they won't let us. Sometimes we don't want to. We've done it so many times before. The path is worn hard from the times that we've run to our children. They may not be our biological children. They may be our nieces, our nephews, our grandchildren, kids on our street. It's tiring, isn't it, running? Again to the kids and picking them up. If we have compassion, then we do. That's Jesus. Blame him for that. I find it tough. Some people in my life, I don't want to run to them. I want to stand and I want to stare and I judge and hope that they come to their senses. Tough love, I believe it's called. He threw his arms around him and he kissed him. I wonder what the hired servants thought. Here's this loser back again, screwed us all over, half our money gone, we've had to work, we've heard what he's been up to, it's been all over the internet. And look at him now, being made a fuss of. The son said to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. He has learnt his lines well. Do you find it a little bit annoying that God forgives him before he repents? That the father forgives his child before he gets his plea for forgiveness out? Don't we sometimes think, God, make him work a bit harder for it? Older father, come on, get a grip of yourself. But the father said to the servants, he doesn't even listen. Do you notice? He doesn't even listen to the son's apology because he's just so happy that he's here. He can hear the apology, to be sure, but he's overwhelmed with love for his child that he had lost. Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. There's a famous painting by Rembrandt in St. Petersburg, I think it is, of the father with his hands over the son's shoulders as he welcomes him back. And if you look carefully, Rembrandt has deliberately done it so that one of the hands is male and one of them is female, showing the completeness of God as protector and carer, and both those qualities that we look for in parents. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. Oh, cool. We're having a party tonight. This will be good. I've worked really hard. Be good to have a bit of a relaxation and enjoy things. So he called one of the servants and asked what was going on. your brother's come back? Or was it, your brother's come back? Or was it, your brother's come back? Or was it, your brother's come back? He replied, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound. The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. I've been on every church rota. I even did the rota of the rotas. That's how committed I am. I have been in this church decades. I've served quietly. I've never made a fuss. I've always voted the right way. I never kick up a disturbance. And this one comes back because he's been on some alpha course and we've baptised him and he gets all of the attention while I give out the welcome leaflets. Come on. And never disobeyed your orders. I have my quiet time every day. Not every now and then with Jesus, every day with Jesus. I drive at the speed limit, always. I enjoy annoying the racers behind me who go right up and try and make me drive faster. I know the Bible backwards. I knew it in Sunday school. I know the church rules. I sleep with them under my pillow. And when I can't sleep, I read them again with joy and gladness. And I don't go off to sleep because I find them riveting. I've read every Monday and Thursday email that has come out from this church. In fact, I've translated them into Polish so that I can take them out there to share with Polish people that might want to come to our church. I watch the service physically in the building, morning and evening, and then I watch again on catch-up. I watch all of Neil's Empower Todays. I share them with everyone I know, and he's got the fatted calf. You never gave me even a young goat, so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, I don't know it's prostitutes, but I'm going to go big with this one, God, to make a point that he's been really bad. It's a rumour, but rumours, they usually stick, don't they? So I'm going to keep going with it. When he comes home, you kill the fatted calf for him. Father says, suit yourself, and goes back in. No. Father says, get a grip. No. Father says, grow up. No. My son, says the father, you're always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. T.S. Eliot says, the last temptation is the greatest treason, to do the right deed for the wrong reason. And that's the older brother. He does the right thing for the wrong reason. He does all the good things with a cold heart. He works hard. He doesn't run off. He wants to be noticed by his father, but doesn't draw attention too much to himself. You see, it's not that the older brother can't forgive. He doesn't want to forgive. And that's a massive difference. I understand that sometimes we find it really hard to forgive. Imagine those people on the news this week, the journey they must have been on towards forgiveness if they had it. But the older brother here doesn't want to. The father encourages him to. Come into the party. No, I don't want to. You wouldn't give me a young calf, so why am I going to eat the fatted one with that little so-and-so? I'm not coming in. Sadly, the older brother isn't in the father's house. I imagine the father's house like that picture, with a veranda, warm rooms, fire raging, food on the table, noise, instruments being dug out of cupboards that haven't been used for years, but we're going to play them now because the young son's home. And the older brother who's done all the right things for years, doesn't go in. One writer said, what is keeping him outside, since after all he is doing everything correctly? Bitterness and anger. A bitter, unforgiving heart is just as much a blockage to entering God's house as is any moral transgression. To be a saint is to be fueled by gratitude, nothing less. Christian discipleship is as much about having a mellow and forgiving heart as it is about believing and doing the right things. A mellow and gracious heart is not a negotiable Christian virtue. It is an essential demand of Christian discipleship. And yet the father still invites the older brother in. And the story doesn't end. And we don't know if the older brother stays outside or actually comes into the father's house. I got a message on our family WhatsApp a couple of weeks ago saying, who ate some of the fudge? This is me with our 2 dogs. And I said, why are you asking? And they said, because the dogs have got the rest of the fudge off the counter and eaten all of it. I said, I ate 3 lumps of it last night. And Joe said, that was fudge that Noah had brought for his auntie Amanda when he went to see his girlfriend in Scotland, because my sister moaned the last time we went to Scotland that she didn't get a gift from him, and she felt that as his auntie she should have had a gift. So he especially brought her some fudge this time. I said, sorry, I didn't know. I thought it was part of the Scottish gift that Noah's girlfriend bought us when she came down over Christmas, and so I ate it. Are you with me still on this, or have you completely lost it? You can see how I was confused. So they said, what are you going to do? You need to tell your sister, confess. So I said, dear Amanda, I've eaten the fudge. The dogs loved it as well. You didn't get any. Love from Neil. She said, I can't believe it. Noah bought that for me and you ate it. You owe me fudge. I said, you're getting nothing. Nothing from me. And so the blame went around. And we live in a culture now, whether it's fudge or politics, where it's all blame and it's all victims. Who am I going to blame? How can I be the victim? And the older brother is wrapped up in this 2,000 years ago. Who can I blame? How can I be the victim? When God says to us through Jesus, you're my daughter, you're my son, you are more than a victim. Whether you were stripped naked and shaved and stood by a wall in Auschwitz, or undone by a business partner or a family member who you feel has betrayed you, you are not a victim. You are my child. Forgiveness literally means, in Jewish thinking, I wish you well with your life. That's literally what it means when we say we forgive someone. I hope your life works out well. I hope things turn to the good for you. It doesn't mean I'll let you off or I'll pretend it doesn't matter. It means I really want the best for you. I forgive you. In a phrase by a guy called John Koenig called Nighthawk, he says this: a reoccurring thought that only seems to strike you late at night, an overdue task, a nagging guilt, a looming future, which you sometimes manage to forget for weeks, only to feel it land on your shoulder once again, quietly building a nest. That's what the phrase Nighthawk means. And as I read those last 4 words, quietly building a nest, I thought that's what unforgiveness is like. When I don't forgive, it's me that I poison. It's me that it affects. And even more annoyingly, sometimes the person I'm holding unforgiveness against isn't even aware that I am unforgiving towards them. They can even walk past you and go, hi, how are you? You okay? You're like, yeah, I'm fine. But inside, that unforgiveness is quietly building a nest. A nest of hardness and pain and regret and bitterness and resentment. Jesus calls us to forgive in a mellow way. Mellow means warm, rich, welcoming, like a hot stew on a cold day. Here's some don'ts for me when it comes to forgiveness. Don't tell someone you've forgiven them, because they may not even be aware that they annoyed you. Mark, you're forgiven. Mark's about thinking, what did I do wrong? Didn't even know I'd annoyed him. Don't need to forget what was done. We don't want to forget Auschwitz, do we? I put it on our family WhatsApp, reminding my children, we must remember these things so that we do not repeat them. Sometimes we need to remember how someone has hurt us so we don't go back and make the same mistake. We don't need to welcome them back into our lives necessarily. Being a Christian doesn't mean that we're always around everyone. If you've got a drug dealer and you have a drug problem, you stay away from that drug dealer and don't go back to them even though you may have forgiven them. Don't dig for sin that isn't there. I've got a friend and he will always do this on the phone, and I'll say, Dave, don't go digging, mate. Don't go digging. You won't find anything good there. Just move on. And don't seek revenge. I wish you well with your life. And for me, the do's of forgiveness, here's just a few. Do still seek justice. Forgiveness doesn't mean that we pretend it didn't really matter. We stand against right-wing politics that says that certain people should go to gas chambers. And we never step back, even though we forgive. Do try and forgive. Forgiveness is hard. It's difficult to forgive. As we were singing that second worship song, someone popped into my mind that I struggle with forgiveness with. Haven't thought of them for a week. Pop! And I thought, why have they come into my mind as we're singing Amazing Grace? That's so annoying. I don't want to think bitterly about them. And so I forgave them again as we sang. Do roll with the process. Sometimes we think it's all sorted, and then they come back keen as mustard into our mind, and we have all those feelings again. Don't think that you're a rubbish person because you struggle to forgive. Don't think that you're the worst Christian because you're back at square one again. At square one, just start again and say, God, I want to forgive them this time. And do forgive in a mellow way. I wish you well with your life. An example for me from our church family in years gone by is Jen Rees-Larkham. I haven't chosen any of you because you're alive and I don't want to embarrass you. But Jen Rees-Larkham went to be with Jesus just a few years ago. And she was a lady for me who exuded forgiveness and mellowness. I'm sure she wasn't perfect. I messaged one of her sons and said, I'm going to talk about your mum on Sunday and say she was forgiving and mellow. He said, oh, she'll love that as she's looking down from being with Jesus. And I imagine she's smiling now and going, that's lovely. That's lovely. I liked being around her. Sometimes she told me it straight. That sermon was a bit long. But it was done in a mellow way. She was a lovely, forgiving lady who had challenges in life, to be sure. But she forgave. I hope I'm like her without that neckerchief thing when I'm her age. I hope people look at me and say, he's a forgiving, mellow chap. You know, the grumpiest people I know are old people. And the loveliest people I know are old people. Because as we get older, we become more extreme in one way or the other. It really is, to a certain degree, I know life circumstances are part of it, but it really is up to us. As I grow older, am I going to become more forgiving and more mellow? A richer person to be around. Like the father in the story. Somebody who challenges the victimization and the blame game of our culture. We need to do the right things, forgive, for the right reasons. Because we're following in the footsteps of Jesus and wanting to be like him. As I've spoken, I've probably annoyed you because you've maybe thought, but Neil, you don't understand the people I'm struggling with. You are just a dim-witted Baptist minister. If you knew the complexities of my life, you wouldn't dare stand there and say that I should forgive them. Again, please blame Jesus, not me. Because Jesus is the one that said we should be like the Father in the story.